Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. We start our video with a story about a horrible neighbor who littered in our OP's yard. In some circles, this is what's referred to as natural consequences. Ha ha ha, well played, OP. Palm trees are the devil. My neighbor learns this firsthand. I'd like to start out by saying that my neighbor hates us. I don't know why, all I know is my first interaction with her was her screaming at me a few weeks after I moved in for parking in her spot on the public street. She claimed that because the spot was 70% in front of her house, she should get a park there. Also, it apparently blocked a driveway that doesn't exist, and that my car has been parking her spot for nearly 3 years. I'll repeat, moved in a few weeks, that's when I knew she was crazy. We got into a really heated exchange a few months ago about the car, the dogs, and the front yard. Ours is apparently messy. It's not. She told me that we're ruining the neighborhood. Over the last few weeks, interactions with her have gotten worse. She throws us dirty looks as we enter and leave our house, badmouths us to the rest of the street, who we're on good terms with, and the worst of all, she throws things over our shared fence. It started out with just palm fronds, from which I assume came from our trees, despite the fact that she also has palm trees on her side of the fence. No bother, our trees, our mess, so I'd pick them up and throw them out. Then rubbish would start to show up, like drink containers, serviettes, wrappers, etc. That bothers me because my yard is generally spotless. Plus, this stuff is bad for my dog to eat. So my revenge. I let the palm trees do their thing. I'm normally on top of palm trees. If you don't have them, you need to know two things. They have large fronds, which are easy to clean up, and they have seed pods, which explode and cause a mess that Satan himself would have dreamed of. I don't like cleaning up the seed pod mess because it takes so long, so I always cut the seed banks down before they explode. I'm always on seed pod watch, so I generally notice them in time. I've cut down every seed pod from every tree except the ones that are leaning over her fence. These are too high to cut down normally and require a long stick with a saw at the end. I assume she doesn't have one, but I do. I look out the window every day and just wait for the day they all explode into her yard. Today was that day. I hope it takes her all day to clean them up. And our second story. Hurry up, I'm in a rush. I work in my friendly neighborhood supermarket. Yesterday, I got called in on my day off to just be a cashier. I'm usually the shift manager. Shift is going normal, etc. Well, break time rolls around. I grab an iced tea, a salad, and head to my coworker's lane to pay. She was finishing up a transaction with another customer, and as she did, they were talking about another coworker who's out on disability and how they both missed her. As I enter the line, this lady, all businesslike and has that Bluetooth earpiece on, lays ice cream on the belt, one item. As my coworker is handing change, the business lady goes, "Hurry up, I'm in a rush." My coworker wasn't slow. She was literally saying, "Have a nice day." I look at the lady and go, "Ma'am, Register 7 doesn't have any customers right now." She responds with, "Well, I'm already here." I just turn back around and my coworker scanned my 2 items by then. I put in my phone number for my discount and I hear the lady go, "Ugh," like obnoxiously. I roll my eyes and go to insert my debit card. Chip malfunction. Just swipe it already. I respond as I insert it again. "Ma'am, it won't let me until after 3 failed attempts." Chip malfunction, and then I swiped and did everything as normal. I swore I could feel the steam emanating from her. Then it's policy to have receipts attached to drinks and such to prove employees paid. I asked my coworker for an extra receipt and 2 paid stickers. This lady goes, "This is ridiculous. Where's your manager?" "Oh, my manager? He's over there." I point her to the store director and then go on my break. After my break, my boss approaches me to tell me she was crazy and that it was funny because he watched it happen. "Lady, there was 3 registers open. If you saw 2 other people in this lane, why did you come to this one and not the other 2 that was empty or had 1 customer?" It was funny, though, to unintentionally screw with her. Some people grow out of the toddler phase. Some never grow up. And our last story. Karen thinks she can have all the parking. So Karen has lived next door for 13 plus years in a duplex apartment. The former owners of my house also previously owned the duplex till they sold it years ago to Karen's sister, a slightly less Karen-esque Karen. When they owned it, they put in a 2-car parking area in front between their house and the next door apartment. They did not drive, so the parking was mostly used by Karen when she later moved in. She is a selfish, petty woman and a user of people. She used the previous owner of our home to the day he died. There's also reason to believe her selfishness led to his death, but that's a whole other story. After he died, the rep for his estate made her get all her stuff out of his house, which she had been storing there. When he died and we eventually moved in, she tried to use us, including trying to store her stuff again, but we knew about her and never let it happen. So we had a bad time with her from the start. Anyway, she also early on made a point of claiming the property line was right up against our house. This was obviously wrong because that's not how property lines work, but we had no reason to argue at the time. Eventually, we had a baby, and with the baby room being near the front, we found it easier to carry a baby/car seat/diaper bag out the front, so we asked her if we could park on our side of the 2-car space. Not only did she refuse, she began to park down the center of it, so there was no room for us to get into it. Karen not only has these 2 spots, but also a 1 to 2 car covered space in the back, all for her one single car. We only have a single spot around back for both our cars, so my wife was parking on the street. Eventually, we got to looking closer at the space and noticed it was practically right up against our house, and remembering what she had claimed in the past, I began to look into the property line. According to a detailed city map on the City Hall website, our property line was down the middle of our houses and lined up with the middle of the 2-car space. I found that Friday, and the city brought up that same map to confirm with us this was correct the following Monday. So we started parking there again anytime she was gone. For the whole week, she began to park not only down the middle, but sometimes diagonal across both spaces. She kept this up all week before finally banging on our door Friday. As soon as she heard us mention the city says the property line is down the middle, she stormed off, stomping and angry, saying she'll be talking to the landlord/city Monday in a very "you'll be speaking to my lawyer" tone. Fine, the city tell her the same thing they told us, and the landlord has no say over our property. A calm weekend. Then Tuesday, our other neighbor, Jimmy, in the other side of the duplex, parked his trailer in our spot. We'd always gotten along with Jimmy all right, as he was the local helpful old guy/lawnmower/handyman. He's also basically the maintenance guy for the duplex. He says the landlords asked him to do that, but we explained the situation and told him that it's best not to get in the middle of this fight, as he knows how Karen gets about things and this won't end easily or soon. They also had him measure the distance across their property and place stakes in the yard marking the line, which was about a foot from our house. He showed me where he started the measurement, and that also did not line up with the city mapping, so it's no wonder the measurements were off. Nonetheless, he agreed and moved the trailer for us. A few days later, Jimmy, someone else, and the duplex owner's husband, who's a male Karen, are walking around our properties talking and doing measurements. No one ever contacted me about this, but I happened to notice them and went out to see what was up. As we're talking to them, the third man eventually implies he's a city worker, but he did not introduce himself as such. His vehicle did not look like a city vehicle, and he was just as cocky, condescending, and talking down to us as the duplex owner. He confirms their measurements were correct, and the property line is a foot from my house, so he seemed to pretty clearly be a contact of the owner pretending to be city to shut us up. We went to the city the next day to confirm they sent someone out. As it turns out, he was from them. His actions were simply from his own frustration dealing with these Karens for the last few days. Turns out the online city map is more of a guideline and not fully accurate. They should not have used it to confirm the property line to us early on. But the big thing that they all seem to have missed from his visit was his mention that the parking spots were on the city property in front of the sidewalk, so none of it's on either property. He can't deny either property from parking there, and if there continue to be issues, the city will clear out both spots, since as city property, neither spot is legally supposed to be there. So we continue to park there, and when we come back one day, we find the Karens have placed railroad ties with metal spikes to keep them there in the middle of both spots, only leaving space down the middle for one spot, which we parked in. The owners drive by while we're there and still claim it's their land, which we tell them it's city property and we have as much right to park there. Eventually, the spikes disappear, but the railroad ties are still in place. This feels like baiting me to mess with their property, the railroad ties, so I contact the city about what I can do. They say that as city property, it falls into the same category as something being in the road. If it impedes public access, we can move it, even if the spike's returned. So I move it, and it comes back, and I move it, and it comes back. I caught Jimmy moving them back the second time and told him what the city said. The owners called the cops. Cops took our statements, but the ties never went back into the space, so I imagine they were told to stop it. A day or two later, Jimmy comes by and apologizes for his part in this. He was basically following orders from the Karens and didn't want to lose his place. Turns out, from his story at least, that the Karen who owns the place finally decided enough was enough and told her husband to stop it, and our neighbor Karen, her sister, was told to either let us in or park in the back. Now we've been able to park without too much issues, though she still parks fairly close to the middle, leaving us barely any room. Part of that's likely due to the ties being along her side now and her car being low to the ground. She, Lincoln Town Car, we, Ford Explorer. Though I'm sure it's mostly just her bending the rules of what she was told as closely as she can. We'd say something, but she refuses to speak to us at all at this point, which is still another win in our book. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.